how are we going to make sure that your business gets in front of the right people at the right time with the right information so that person can make the right decisions about whether or not they follow you or purchase from you or share what you're selling with a friend?
What are some of the mistakes that businesses make when creating content for visibility?
I think one of the big mistakes is not creating content at all.
It's huge, yeah.
If you start asking yourself questions that your client would be asking, you can start to create content in that vein. And if you don't find the content that you're looking for, then that's your gap. I feel like if you have not established the brand of your business, you shouldn't use AI to start that. I think that customers are going to start looking for like more digital experiences and more content focused experiences. They want to see that a single piece of content actually speaks directly to them.
In today's episode, we're joined by Danni White. Danni is the CEO of DW Creative Consulting Agency, a digital marketing firm specializing in elevating the presence and profitability of small to mid-sized businesses and nonprofits. With over a decade of experience, Danni has demonstrated her expertise in branding and marketing, working with a diverse range of clients from emerging personal brands to industry giants in the Fortune 500 sector. Danni is the author of 17 books and hosts the Hashtag and Habits podcast, which merges digital marketing, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. Join us today as we talk with Danni about creating organic and SEO visibility through content. Welcome to the show, Danni.
Thank you, Eli. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you here. I know that we've had, it's been a few months since we scheduled this, and I had a conflict, and then you had a conflict, and then I think I had another one, and then you had another one, but I'm very excited to finally have you here. Just so the audience knows, Danni and I met at Podcast Summit a couple of months ago in Atlanta, and there were so many podcasters there, and it was really great. It was good learning, but I think we were the only two in marketing, right? Did you meet anyone else that was in marketing?
I did not meet anyone else who was in marketing. I met a lot of content creators. I met a lot of influencer marketing people, but I didn't meet anyone like in core content development, content strategy, SEO. Like you were the only person I met in SEO. So that was really interesting to see like how focused like we are in our space and how a lot of people are kind of gravitating to like the content creator space. It might be a little bit overcrowded at this point, but
Yeah, it was interesting to see how many different topics. I really thought there would be a lot of marketers when I first signed up. And it was interesting to see the different topics of podcasts. And I was really surprised because, like, I would hear a topic of a podcast and I would be like, I would never watch that. And then they're like, I get 100,000 downloads a month. And I'm like, okay, so I guess there's an audience. So if you're looking to start a podcast out there and you think it's dumb, don't come to me for advice because there's probably a niche for it.
yeah, I also was surprised at how many people had podcasts on different topics, but really were not able to like market their podcast in a way where they could grow their audience. And so just like understanding like how to get in front of people, whether it's online or in person, is like part of the marketing journey that like business owners have to learn. So I met a lot of people that had podcasts, interesting podcasts as well, but like growing the audience is like that's where like the hard work I think comes
It
in.
is. It's hard and it does take time. And I think I'm about 50 episodes in and I'm still learning. I'm still like, oh, I didn't realize I could have done it that way or this way, or I wish I'd have known that in the beginning and stuff like that. But Danny, tell us about yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? What'd you want to be when you were little? And how'd you go from there to getting to where you're at today?
Well, I grew up I was born in Athens,
Mhm.
Georgia. I spent half my life in Athens. Half my life in Georgia. I spent a little bit of my life in Florida and then majority of my life after 14 years old in Texas, where I'm at now. Still enjoy Georgia. Go back often. I love Georgia, love Texas, probably love Georgia a little bit more now. But yeah, I grew up there. I'm the eldest of 7 kids. I have 2 brothers and I have 4 sisters. So yeah, eldest of 7. And we kind of like grew up together and we also moved around a lot. So we probably lived in almost all the cities in Georgia, as you can imagine. Lived a little bit in Florida. And then when we moved to Texas, we moved around a lot here as well before like kind of settling down and finding our sea legs. What I wanted to be when I grew up, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. So very much off track from what I'm doing now. But I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I felt like just the brain and the body and understanding anatomy and human anatomy was really interesting, but I wasn't on that path towards, going into med school. I wasn't on that path to liking science, really. I didn't really like science or math or any of those fields, but got off that track and went into school for psychology. And then after that, got into digital marketing. I was really in content writing long before I got into like actual content marketing and knew what content marketing was. It's probably not ethical now, but I used to write essays for high school and college
Oh, no.
students. um,
Was it ethical then? That's the
so
question.
I don't know if it was ethical then, but I was making a lot of money and I was writing a lot of
Yeah,
essays.
yeah.
Probably not the most ethical now with AI and all of those tools, but yeah, that's kind of like my first foray into creating a business on my own. That was my business when I was 17 all the way to about 24. And I made a good chunk of change with that
Hmm,
business.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that was content writing before I knew that content marketing and all the things surrounding content was like an actual thing that companies hire
Yeah.
for. So yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I did a podcast with Julia Panozzo, who she talked about neuromarketing and SEO. She had a very similar path where she's like, I wanted to go to school, but she actually was found out she had this phobia of blood, and I can't remember. There's a name for it, but I can't remember what it is. But she talked about
Yeah.
how,
We have
yeah.
the same
So
phobia.
she started going to school, and she said, I went and I saw like a surgery for the first time. I can't remember exactly what it was, but she's like, I passed out and found out, okay, this isn't for me. But she took that love for like the brain and neuroscience and she turned it into marketing. She's doing a lot of really cool things. And I think psychology is very similar. And so you probably have a very good background in marketing before you even got into marketing because you understand the human experience. You understand the brain, how it works, and really how to market people. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree with that. I think my first job, my first actual real job, leave the ethical real job was in content marketing at a B2B tech startup. And going into the role, like the bullet points of like what they wanted me to do, like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can write, I can interview people, I can edit, I can publish, I can do SEO, like I can do those bullet points, but I didn't know that there was an entire job function behind it. And so when I got into the role, a lot of it felt like really easy. Like, I don't know if this is challenging enough for me or if this is like what people do in their 9 to 5s. But I would definitely agree, like the psychology behind how you present things to people. It's like we're doing a video now and we're doing an audio along with this. Like the formats of presenting things to people has definitely like changed a lot. And attention spans, of course, have gotten so much shorter. People are just used to that snackable, scrollable content and being able to make sure a brand understands that is kind of like where I'm in my like sweet spot now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you feel like being the oldest of all the siblings makes you like more responsible and like like lend you towards the being a business owner compared to everyone else as well? Do you feel like your website traffic is kind of in a slump right now? Or maybe over the last couple of weeks or months, it's actually dipped quite a bit and you cannot figure out what to do next? Go to fireusmarketing.com/meeting to schedule a free meeting with me where we can look at your website, talk about your frustrations, and see if there's anything that I can do to help you out. The meeting is absolutely free. There's no strings attached. If I can help you, I'd love to. Again, go to fireusmarketing.com/meeting. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, definitely an overachiever. Yes. Yes, I think being the eldest, always just being the scapegoat for everything, like before all my siblings came along, like, being the scapegoat for everything. First one to leave home, first one to learn how to drive, first one to get a degree, like just being the first. I think that has made me less fearful of like experiences, like less fearful of being able to take risks and things like that. And so now, like owning a business is like second nature to me. I don't think that she could pay me millions of dollars to go back to that
That's
company.
funny. My oldest brother also owns a business. He's great. I actually have multiple entrepreneurs in my family. I'm the youngest, and I'd kind of take the flip side of that. Like you say, I think it's interesting the way you say that is that um, you're like, you're not afraid because you've already experienced all that. You were the first one to go through it. You were the one that your parents like experimented with, right? And then they got better as they got
Exactly.
to the youngest.
Experiment child.
As the as the youngest, I feel like it's like I had to work so hard to compete with my older brothers.
Older
Yeah,
brother,
and
yeah.
I didn't have, older sisters. It was just, like, 3 older brothers always picking on me, and they still are. They still do through text. Just the other day, my brother was making fun of how tall I was, and it's just, like, typical brother stuff, right? But I've had
Yeah,
to
it never gets
fight.
old.
I know, and I did kinda set him up, so that's on me. But I had to fight this whole time to get to where I'm at, and so I know that there's a lot of studies that show that the youngest often becomes like CEOs of companies and owners because they've had to fight their whole entire life. But I can see both sides for sure. Maybe one is fear based and the other one is experience based or wisdom, if you will, because you've already gone through it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that side as well. And I've read some studies with like that information where I think it was Elon Musk and is it Jeff
Mhm,
Bezos? They were comparing the two of them, and I think they're either the oldest or they're the
mhm.
youngest in their family, and how they've just grown into like having this exponential
Yeah.
success, and like it's out of this world, and how they kind of set the bar like not even high, just like out of reach for
Oh
it
yeah.
feels like it's out of
Uh-huh.
reach. So yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. But I'll tell you this though, I see lots of studies come through on this same note, and then we can move on. I see lots of studies come through that say the oldest is most successful because of X, Y, and Z. And then I see another study that says the youngest is most successful because of X, Y, and Z. I only share with my
Yeah.
siblings the one that benefits me.
The one that's the youngest.
I'm like, see, told you. And then the next time I see one that's like the oldest, I'm like, keep scrolling, keep going. What are you currently working on that excites you? So you get out of bed in the morning, you're like, "Man, I cannot wait to do this today." What's that for you?
I think the thing now is focusing on actual client work. I've been doing a lot more strategy focused work for clients. I think the landscape of marketing and SEO, the entire just domain of marketing, digital marketing is changing and evolving a lot. And especially now, especially with AI and, just voice search becoming a thing, a lot of personalization becoming a thing. So I've been doing a lot more strategy and I get excited about strategy because that is where I'm kind of like shaping a brand or a business as to how they're going to present themselves in the digital space or to their customers. And that is the most exciting thing to like see ideas come to life. So yeah.
Hmm. That's awesome. So our main topic today is we're gonna go over creating visibility through content and how that really impacts SEO, right? Because this is part of the SEO series, and content is a huge part of SEO, as we all know. So just to kind of start off, getting into that tactical section. So how do you define content visibility, and why is it so important to SEO?
So how do I define content visibility? I'll define visibility first because I think visibility is something that a lot of small business owners don't really understand that there's more than one or two ways to get
Hmm.
visibility. And a lot of it does not involve media and public relations because I think that is like the first thing that comes to mind when you say, okay, let's create a visibility plan for your business. It's really just saying, how are we going to make sure that your business gets in front of the right people at the right time with the right information so that person can make the right decisions about whether or not they're going to follow you or purchase from you or share what you're selling with a friend, right? That's what visibility is to me. Content, because there's so many content formats, I do feel like some business owners just stick to one or two formats and they feel like that's it. But if you haven't really found your audience yet or found your tribe really in terms of clients or clientele or people that would be interested in buying from you, you should be trying all the forms of content. And there are a ton. So that's kind of where a lot of my strategy work lies. Finding out the ways that we can make you presentable to your audience. And then how do we do that through creating content? Because content, I feel, is the easiest way to get in front of your audience, even easier than media and public relations. So, yeah, that's kind of how I define
Okay,
it.
so you mentioned 2 things I wanna dig into. You mentioned there's lots of different types of content, so I want you to
Mhm.
kinda list those out for me. A lot of people listening are business owners that aren't really heavy into the marketing. They're doing it on their own, they wanna elevate themselves online, but it's not their full-time jobs. So, first question, what are the different types of content? And then second question, you mentioned that you have a strategy in combining that for your clients and saying, "Okay, let's figure out what the best place to post is, and then from there create a strategy." Walk me through what that strategy looks like.
So for the types of content, there are a ton of
Okay.
types of content. So there's long form blog posts, there's short form blog posts. So short form is pretty much anything that's less than 800 words. Long form is anything that's above 800 words. And then you have the super long form, which is anything that's 2,500 words or more. And typically, a lot of that content is in like a PDF or downloadable type of format, right? Where you put it in an email, there's a form fill in front of it, and then you give up your email in order to get the
Mhm.
document. There's that. There's slideshows and presentations. Depending on what information you're sharing, you might need to present it in a more visually appealing way. And so slideshows and presentations help
Okay.
with that. Videos, obviously, like the one we're doing here, audio, like the one we're
Mhm.
doing here, there's social media content, there is paid ad content, there is lead generation content, there's sales funnel content, there is direct messaging content. There are so many different types of content, and they're all different sizes. And when I say sizes, it's long form versus short form versus super short form versus a LinkedIn connection message only has 300 characters. Like, say what you have to say in those 300 characters, right? And keeping all of that consistent across a brand or business. So a lot of times when it comes to strategy, we're starting out with a very long form piece of content that could be like a white paper or an ebook that could be used to drive leads to the business or drive interest to the business, right? And then to continue that format, we'll dissect that long piece of content into more snackable pieces of content. Maybe that's a blog series. Maybe that is a mini video series. Maybe it's a private podcast, as people are doing now, where it's like a few episodes and it's packaged together. And this is like all you get on a particular topic. Maybe it's interviewing subject matter experts, whatever is relevant to that particular business. It's packaging that and understanding, okay, this is your ICP, your ideal client profile. This is the types of content that they are most interested in based upon research, based upon analytics. And this is how you should present your business or brand to them with these formats. I think sometimes businesses get stuck on one or two formats and they think that that's all that there is, and it doesn't work. And it really is because you have to do the research and understand where your people are coming from, what they're most interested in, and how you can present your brand or business to them in that way that they would receive it.
Okay. So that's the what. Now let's dive into the how. How do they know the topic? How do they know what their customer is? Where do they go to figure that out? If they're kind of doing this on their own because they can't afford an in-house person or an agency like yours or mine, give them some tips on where they can go and what they should look for when creating this strategy on their own.
Okay. So some basic, I guess, basic tools that you should have. So like if you have a
Mhm.
website, if people can go to your website, you should have Google Analytics behind your website. You should have Google Search Console behind your website. Both of those tools will tell you how many people are coming to your site on any given time frame, what pages they're landing on, what pages are reoccurring, like how many people are reoccurring to a particular page. Are they staying on the site for a long time? Or are they not staying on the site for a long time? If it's a short time that they're staying on the site, like just a few seconds, it could be that your page is not long enough. It's not giving them the information that they need, right? Or that they're searching for. Those two tools are free and can help
Mhm.
anyone. Like if you install the tracking code on your website or have your web developer to do it, you can start to see how the traffic is coming into your site or maybe not coming into your site. And that would be
Mhm.
an SEO
Yeah.
problem, right? So then Google Search Console, it really shows you a dissectment of each of the
Okay.
pages, right? Particular keywords, it'll show pages that are people are most interested in. It'll also show you error messages like pages that have 404 errors, those types of things, that pages that are not working, that should be working. It'll give you a breakdown of what's working and not working on your site. And if you really take some time to just look through those things and understand what those things mean, each of those elements mean, you can make improvements on your site. The other thing is social media. So if you are getting a lot of business through social media or through, different channels or profiles, looking at the analytics, each of the social media platforms have an analytics section where it'll show you, engagement, time of engagement, like how long did they stay on your profile. It'll show you highest performing content versus lowest performing content, those types of things. Those are very basic ways to just understand a little bit of like what's working, what's not working. Beyond that, you can start getting into more of like the paid SEO tools like
Mhm.
SEMrush. Ahrefs, those types of tools. And by no means am I a representative of any of these companies. They're not cutting me a check. When they cut me a check, maybe I'll become a representative. But yeah, start getting into those paid tools, which will show you a little bit more of, okay, maybe keywords that you are missing in their gap analysis. They'll give you a gap analysis and they'll show you keywords that are missing. Maybe there are user queries or certain questions that your audience is asking that you might not be answering on your website. The other thing that I like to do, which is really more manual and it's not like attached to a tool, is if there is a particular search term, let's say I just did this for a client, they are in the DEI space. And so they have DEI consulting as one of their services, right? It's a service they offer to corporations. However, when I type in DEI consulting in Google, you guys are not showing up. So that's just a simple, like 3 minute, what is the main service that you're offering? Type that service into Google because more than likely, if you're typing it into Google, other people are typing it into Google. And if you don't show up, then that's a problem that we need to fix, right? So, I mean, that's just a baseline of like what small businesses and I mean mid-sized businesses as well can also start with.
So if I'm putting myself in their shoes, that can be super helpful, but it can be a little bit overwhelming. If I've never really done blog posts, I've never done social media, I've never done podcasts, like how do I know where to start? Do I do all of them and look at the analytics and say, which one do I focus on? Do I start one at a time and get really good at it and then move to the next one? What do you suggest in that regard?
I would say to do all of them at once because it gives you a holistic picture of what is happening with your website and with your brand. It can be overwhelming, but really once you get into it, it's not that overwhelming. And a lot of small businesses have small sites. It's not that many pages because we're not yet creating content on those pages to warrant a lot of URLs. So if you have a small site, like less than 10 or maybe less than 20 pages, you should be able to get through looking through the analytics of the site pretty quickly.
So look through the analytics on your website, but then also you're saying you recommend starting Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and all of those at the same time, then look at the analytics. So how long do they have to do that before they can justify it and say, I gave it my all. This one's not working. This one is.
I would say 90 days, providing that you're actually consistently posting something to get some analytics. So once a week is a good rhythm to start with. It will give you something tangible that you can kind of go forward and say, okay, well, Snapchat is not working. Our business owners are not there. Our people that we're looking for are not there. And then just like a breakdown of like some of the social platforms. So let's say that you're B2B, more than likely you should be hanging out on
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
for sure. Hmm.
Majority of your people probably are on LinkedIn, but you won't know that unless you start posting and sharing what you do and cultivating an audience on these platforms. If you're more video based and you like to be in front of the camera, okay, you should be producing YouTube videos and TikTok videos, right? Your audience is probably hanging out on those channels. If you are more B2C based, like consumer focused, well, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, those are probably going to be your channels to hang out on. But I can only tell you this from like experience and from working on so many projects that are it's literally the same thing. If you're just starting out and you're like, don't know anything, I say do all of them because you'll have data to back up your decision.
Yeah. If you have the resources and you're able to be consistent for 90 days, I agree. If you don't have the resources and you can't do it, don't halfway do all of them. Like all the way do some of them and then you can expand if you want from there. But I like the idea of doing all of them if you do have the resources. One of the strategies that I've used in the past that has worked with a lot of clients is the repurposing, which you brought up already, repurposing and batch creation. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at doing your strategies for all of your social medias and your blog posts, let's say you write a long form blog post, you can repurpose a lot of that, take snippets out and either record some of the video for some of the reels or TikToks. You can use some of the content for Twitter, stuff like that. So you kind of have a similar topic each week throughout all of your channels. And then batch content creation is really helpful where I used to sit down every Saturday and I would take like 4 hours and just create all the content I needed for the whole entire week. And then I would go on and schedule it. And luckily, like a lot of the platforms allow scheduling now. LinkedIn was kind of the last one that now they finally do. So you can go on and you can schedule a post every single day for the next week if you sit down and batch content,
Exactly.
all of that, right? Talk to me more about what are some of the so you mentioned this in the beginning, but I want to go into it a little bit more. What are some of the mistakes that businesses make when creating content for visibility?
I think one of the big mistakes is not creating content at
It's
all.
huge, yeah.
I get that content creation, it feels like a lot for a lot of business owners because you have so many other hats that you're wearing. There's HR, there's finance, there's payroll, there's getting sales, like getting business, actual business into the business, right? And then just overall maintaining business and business structure. But if creating content can be a very easy way to get new sales that you don't have to go after it like intentionally necessarily. Like you don't have to have these lengthy lead lists and all, CRMs and all of that. Creating consistent content can really be a way for you to get new business and new clients in the door, and at least people inquiring about what it is that you do. I think that's just the first mistake, like not creating content at all. The second mistake is really not taking a deep dive into your audience and understanding truly who your clients are. So if we go back to the example of like the DEI company, their clients are very few. CHROs, talent management leads, workplace management leads. That's their audience. That is the long and short of their audience. They're not going to target finance people. They're not going to target CEOs. They're just not, right? That is their core focus of their business. And so what I would do then is once you understand that, start putting yourself in the shoes of that particular client. Like if you were a DEI manager or a DEI consultant, right? What would you be looking for? What questions would you be asking? What information would you need to do your job better? What information would you need to make better decisions, right? If you start asking yourself questions that your client would be asking, you can start to create content in that vein. And if you don't find the content that you're looking for, then that's your gap. That's your gap. It's for you to create, right? I guess if we go to like what industries are your clients in?
Um, we have some e-commerce customers, global e-commerce customers. We have some schools that help troubled teens. We have some chiropractors. Yeah, handful like that.
Okay, so let's take the chiropractors. Audience of chiropractors. Let's say you are the owner of a chiropractic business and you are in Dallas, Texas. I'm just going to use Dallas, Texas.
Sure. Yeah.
That's where I am. Um, you want your audience is going to pretty much be anybody with back issues, joint issues, any of the things that you pretty much tackle as a chiropractor in a certain radius, in a certain number of zip codes, right? So you're probably going to be like maybe 50-mile radius. Average person is not going to drive more than 50 miles for a chiropractic appointment or a dentist appointment or a doctor's appointment, right? So you want to set your SEO to be like within that 50-mile radius of where your locality, your location is, and then start answering the questions that your clients come to you for. So let's say that you might have a client on Monday that comes and says, okay, I have lower back issues. What do I need? What do I do? You can write a blog post about that, answering that question. Because if there's one customer in your zip code that has lower back issues, there's probably about 10 more that have lower back issues. And when it gets really bad and they need to find that person to help them, they're going to type in chiropractor near me, or they're going to type in how to alleviate lower back pain. And you want to show up for that answer. So that's kind of a more of a practical way of how content and SEO work. It's really what people are searching for and whether or not you show up in their searches or
That
not.
makes sense. What about companies that have really big websites and a lot of content already? Before this, the last question we talked about small companies that have like 20-page websites and where they start. How do you stay fresh? Like when you do this analysis and you go to a website and they have 1,000 blog posts, do you just continue writing new ones, or do you say, how do I refresh all of this? Walk me through the strategy for some of the bigger clients.
Okay, so because I just finished a project last month, and they had like 2,700 URLs, and they were mostly, long form content on different topics. And so the first thing we did was a content audit because the amount of traffic they were getting is not really like matching up to the amount of content you actually have. So there's a gap somewhere in here. Like either the content is not resonating, there's something structurally or technically wrong with the website. We started to go through that process. And so when I see so many pages on a website, like I really get excited because there's like a ton of stuff to work with, right? It's just a matter of categorizing that stuff so that it makes sense for the business. So that's the first thing we did. We did a content audit. Content audit took like 2 months,
That's what I was
but
gonna ask. Do you go through one
nonetheless.
by one? Do you have a tool that looks at it? Like, how do you do that?
So we use a few tools. We use the SEMrush tool because on the Guru plan, I think it is, you can upload. They can go through as many pages out at once, but it can only give you so much information. It can't really, and I haven't really found a good tool to actually tell whether or not the content itself is good enough or it's answering the questions that a reader would want to answer or find the answers to on that page. The two platforms that get the closest to this is Market Muse and ClearScope. I've used both of those tools, and I think both of them get close enough to giving you a really good analysis of the actual content, not just the structure of the page, right? And I think those are two different things. There's another one that is up and coming. It's really focused on like AI and like generating the information from a page through the AI tool. But I won't mention that one because I think it needs a little bit of work. So if you're looking for content specific, Market Muse and ClearScope are two really good ones. And so we use that. We use SEMrush and then we use Market Muse and ClearScope with splitting, doing half on Market Muse and doing half on ClearScope because you don't want to like overload the system. We finished the content audit, and really what we found through that content audit was that over half, 50% of the content was low performing or not performing at all. So, in that sense, it's now taking a drag on the site because people are not even looking for this content anymore. It's outdated, right? So, what we did is okay, identify the topics within that low performing or not at all performing content that are still relevant for the business. It was less than 5%. 45% of that content was trash. Like, they didn't need to be on the site. So what do? We archive all those pages. Archive all those pages, make sure they're not showing up in Google search, de-index them. And now we can focus on the 50% that's actually relevant for the business and improving the performance of that content. And so within the span of 6 months, the traffic on that site increased by 44% just by removing the clutter, removing the trash, and focusing more on what is actually working or has the potential to work. And so with larger sites, I always say to like start with a content audit. More than likely, there's a lot of content that doesn't need to be on your site because it's outdated or it's old or you no longer have the product or you're not offering the service anymore. There's probably a reason why people are not searching for that content. And the other thing is there's also a lot of pages that are created in larger sites just for internal purposes. It's not even focused on customers or clients. It's just internal. We need a landing page for this. We want to use it in our own internal campaign, circulate it within the company or whatever. A lot of those pages, if they are not de-indexed from Google, they don't really need to be showing up in search. So just kind of making the categorization between what's relevant for the business, what's for clients, and what's not for clients.
So if it's not for clients, either put it on a subdomain and have a no follow, or just make sure it's not
Yes.
indexable. It's interesting how
Yeah.
many clients do that just because they need a place to send a link, right? And then Google looks at it
Yes.
as thin content or not valuable content or not relevant to your main topic.
Yeah. And then it takes the entire site down. Like that, like the entire domain authority of the site then decreases because of one or two or 10 pages that you just wanted for God knows
Mhm.
what.
Yeah. So with the
Yeah.
with
So
with the 45% of the pages that you ended up archiving, when you say archive, did you redirect them and just, like, delete them? Like, what does it look to archive?
So archiving in my book is unpublishing, so moving it to draft state and then making sure that the URLs that are in Google Console associated with those draft state pages that are now marked as no index so that Google is not trying to rate them or trying to scam them. Making sure there are no 404 error pages. So making sure that's also taken care of from the technical side. But just making sure Google cannot scam these pages and people cannot search
And
for
you
these
do that
pages.
within Google Search Console, is what you said? Okay.
Yes. And no, Google Search Console and then WordPress
Mhm.
because the site was in WordPress, so just unpublishing the pages from there.
And then you didn't redirect any of those. You just killed them and said, "We're done." Is there a reason you didn't redirect them if they had links going to them in the past? Did you think that's just better off since they're not any value, they may be more harm than good, so you just stopped?
Yeah, I think that when it's low performing and definitely when there's just no traffic for 90, 120, half 6 months, like it's no point really in redirecting. I feel like if the page has link value within the page, like internal links, then that might be of value. But if it doesn't really, and a lot of their pages were short on copy itself, and they didn't have any internal linking. Like they just forgot about that part altogether. So it was like, okay, these pages are kind of useless. So in that sense, yes, just trash
Yeah,
them off.
that makes sense. What is your
Yeah,
stance on using AI to write content?
I have a couple of different stances about
Okay, let's hear 'em.
AI. So I feel like if you have not established the brand of your business first, like your brand voice, your tone, how you typically talk, how you want to appear and talk to customers or clientele, you shouldn't use AI to start that. I really think that having your brand voice documented in a way where anyone can come into your business and write, even an AI tool, is helpful. And I've noticed that a lot of businesses just skip that part altogether. Or did we have an AI tool? It's free. We can use it. That's one. I think documenting the brand voice, the style, the tone of your language, that type of thing is really important. The second thing is if you haven't really worked with a writer before, AI is not the time to try to train them to be a writer. I've just seen it and like not very well. Like the content doesn't come out the way that you would want it to come out. That's true. So probably have a writer first to train. You can be able to train the AI so that that writer will write your content the way you want it to write according to your brand guide. And then you can upload that content as a sample of how you want your content, the rest of your content to be. If you can do those two steps, then I think AI could be useful. But you have to know how to prompt the AI. Like you can't just like say, okay, I want a blog post about, I don't know, fixing my lower back issues. What would client? You can't like don't do that because a lot of people are doing that and it's really spitballing the same thing in just 1,000 different ways. You have to really prompt the AI so that it can write in a way that matters, that is almost publishable for you once it's done. AI can save a lot of time. There are a lot of really great tools. Claude.ai is awesome. Jasper is awesome. Copy.ai is really awesome. There is a new tool called PenFriend that's really awesome as well. But if you can't prompt it the right way, you're still going to struggle.
That makes sense. What's your measuring stick when you're like, okay, we are going to um, get your content more visibility? That's our primary goal. Is it impressions? Is it clicks? Is it conversion? What is your main KPI that you focus on when trying to get more visibility for content?
So the main KPI is whatever KPI is how the business would measure. So if they say, okay, I just want more impressions on this piece of content, then that's one KPI, and that's really a vanity metric. I do say that certain numbers don't really result in like revenue. And I think a lot of times business owners, they're trying to get to revenue. And so they'll say, okay, I want like 10,000 likes on this, or I want this content to go viral. No one can really like make your content go viral. Content has to be good enough. And you also have to use like the right keywords, put it in the right, the search has to be right. The captions have to be right. The video has to be right. Like it all goes together. It's not like one thing you could press a button and say go viral. For me, my KPIs are always going to be what is valuable to the business. If it's just brand awareness and you just want to make sure that, okay, every video has 2,500 likes, then okay, we just focus on creating great content. Like that would be the process because you want a vanity metric. But majority of the time, most of the time, you want revenue. You want this to connect to revenue. And so in that sense, we are really focusing on creating content that is relevant for the ICP. We go through the profiling of your actual customers and clients. We understand who they are. We understand what they're looking for. We understand your business and what you're selling and make sure that there is a no disconnect between the two. And then we create content around that and put it in the right places. Part of that is also making sure that there's a user journey that happens. So if you're writing a blog post, in that blog post somewhere, there needs to be an opportunity for them to either download something so they can continue through the journey or set up a consultation they can always be going to the next step, right? That's kind of how I measure the KPIs. Part of it also is education and like educating my customers too on what actually matters in content. It's not just like writing and publishing for the sake of writing and publishing. Like, what is the goal of this piece of content? What do you want to achieve with it? And then how do we make sure that we're not doing work 5 times? That's where the repurposing part
Mhm.
like comes in.
And I love that from an expert marketer. A lot of times talking to the business owners, you have to do that education and say, "Look, I know you want more visibility, or I know you want more X, Y, or Z, but from my perspective, from a marketing standpoint, the reason we're creating this is so that long term you can see some of these benefits." And I think there is a lot of
Yeah,
gap in what the owners know compared to what we would recommend as agency owners and SEOs and content creators. And so I think education is a big part for sure.
that's for sure. And also, I would probably say here, like, for people that are listening, just be careful of the information that you read and listen to online because a lot of the like success stories, many of them are not telling you the full process. Like they're leaving out certain things. Like, okay, they might be leaving out time as a reference, like the time it took to get to wherever number they're talking about, right? That could have been 6 months, that could have been 18 months, that could have been 3 years. You don't really know that part. So just be careful to ask the questions like, okay, how long did this actually take you? How much did this actually cost? Like those types of things so that you understand where to place your measuring
For
stick.
sure. The only real, like, relevant places to go to get actual truthful content is your podcast, Hashtags and Habits podcast, and the Digital Revolution podcast. Everyone else could lead you astray. So,
I would second that.
oh, that's awesome. Danny, where do you see the future going in SEO? Okay, listen up real quick. I promise I'm going to get you right back to the episode. But are you frustrated that your product or service isn't getting the right amount of visibility it deserves online? If so, and you want my help guiding you through the SEO optimization, go to fireusmarketing.com/SEO to get my free SEO guide. Talks about all levels of SEO: local SEO, regional SEO, national SEO, and international SEO. It should give you everything you need to optimize your website at a basic level. If you'd like help beyond that, feel free to hit me up at fireusmarketing.com. I'd be happy to jump on a call and talk through your needs. Now let's get back to this episode.
The future in SEO, I see a lot more personalization happening. And not just in SEO, but also in like business in general. Um, I think the way that personalization, and I wrote a LinkedIn post about this, ironically, the way that personalization has been done, I feel like it's going to move past just like putting your first name on an email. I think that customers are going to start looking for like more digital experiences and more content focused experiences. They want to see that a single piece of content actually speaks directly to them from search all the way to the end, right? I think that's going to be the focus on hyper personalization. I feel like is going to be a big focus for 2025 for a lot of marketers. Google has also like, started implementing a lot of like AI based content in their search. So like when people type in a question, there's like this little filter that comes up at the top with like AI based answers and it connects to sites that, have written that cohesive, succinct copy to answer a question or to give a particular type of information. The tighter the content is on your site for particular questions, I feel like you would be able to win in that space. The race to AI is only going to get faster. And I think the more that people start understanding how AI actually works, and the amount of data that goes into creating these types of platforms and in search, the types of answers that come out, the better your site and your content could be. Those are two things that I feel are gonna really advance in 2025 and beyond that.
2025 is going to be a fun year. We'll see how things progress with the
Yes, for
AI. I
sure.
think it's only like 2024 AI has been a big topic. There's been some ups and downs in the search engines. Lots of new stuff. I think 2025 will be telling for us to see how the next decade after that will be for sure.
That's true. I think another big thing is gonna be more integrated SEO. Like SEO is gonna go beyond just like content on a web page. Like SEO is gonna become part of like paid ads. It's gonna become part of podcasting. Like even in the podcast channels, I'm seeing like, okay, the more specific words that you use in your titles and your episode titles, like the more traffic and downloads you're starting to get. And I think that it's going to work more cohesively across channels. It's going to be less about just what's on your website and more about, okay, how are you using like maybe hashtags in social media? How are you using those same verbiage and brand voice in your paid ads? And when people are searching for things in these different channels, like TikTok's search engine is incredible. It's better than Google in my opinion. When people are searching for specific things, like it truly is going to like separate the kids from the adults in the searches. So yeah, I think SEO will be more
Yeah,
holistic.
more about your personal brand everywhere, right? Like on
Yes.
podcasts, on social media, anywhere that a search engine or AI bot can go and crawl. It's gonna look at the more, like
Hmm.
you said, holistic view of who you are as the owner, as well as who you are as a business, and then it's gonna make decisions from there.
Yeah.
And I think personal brand for business owners is gonna be bigger than it ever has been. We see evidence in this in Google. We see evidence, with EEAT. We see evidence in it in LinkedIn, where a lot of the even in ads for LinkedIn, you're able to use
Yeah.
personalized, like my profile, my face, promoting my business as opposed to my business page doing that promotion, and
Hmm.
those conversions are way higher because we resonate with people. We don't
Absolutely.
resonate with businesses. We resonate with people.
We don't resonate with businesses. Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. I did a podcast episode, I think it was like March or April, where I was talking about like how personal brand, like this is the year of a personal brand. What you can be behind the scenes all you want to, but you need to have an opinion on whatever it is that you do. You need to have an opinion on that thing because that's going to only help you stand out more. And it's not about institutions and big corporations anymore. Like people want that personalized human connection and they want to feel connected to people. And I think that this has become a big part, especially after COVID. Like it's become a big part of like branding and messaging and marketing in general. So I definitely agree with that.
Well, Danny, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on and talk with us today about content, about visibility, about SEO. I think that we pulled away a lot of really good golden nuggets that the audience is going to love, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, I appreciate it. This was a long time coming, but we
I
finally did
know.
it.
I'm glad. I'm glad that we made it happen. And yeah, and anyone else who's listening out there, we'll talk to you guys next week.